30 seconds until entry.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to week number 18 for Decipher WARS Radio. I'm your host, Mark Tuttle, and let me first apologize for not having a WARS Radio last week, folks. Things got a little crazy around here. It was moving day in the offices, and a lot of folks were out of the building because of the big tournament over at Spiel in Essen, Germany. So back on track, at least for one more week. We'll tell you about that coming up in just a little bit. Let's do some wrap-up over the last couple of weeks. First of all, first tournament weekend happened, the weekend of October 16th through 17th. Hope you guys and gals had a great time at that. You're always asking me, what do I like to play? You know, do I go to tournaments, that kind of stuff? So I'll tell you my first tournament weekend event. I played in two local first tournament weekend events here in the Hampton Roads area down in Virginia, both run by Carl Horn, who's a great Decipher volunteer. Took my nephew for the weekend. We spent a couple hours building decks, got our collective butts handed to us. We were bottom of the barrel in just about every tournament we played in. We built kind of similar Earther Maverick decks. What we did is we took the starter deck and just kind of built onto that with what we had. We were kind of taking advantage of the vehicle tax, the +1 attrition on the flicks, some other tricks for the Mavericks. We did lots of destiny manipulation and some of the cheap pilots that had decent text on them. Almost every deck that we came up against was Quay. And it was just horrible. It was swarming, and it was Quay infiltrator ships that wouldn't let us battle or drain or anything like that, and it was just ugly. We were just beaten up by Quay all weekend. But the most important thing is we had a great time doing it, so we hope you got a chance to go to some first tournament weekend events, and I hope you had fun there as well. Now, speaking of Spiel, that is over. Congratulations, Sebastian Winkelhaus, for winning the first big tournament for WARS TCG. Now, don't forget that your next chance is coming up in March 2005 at the $10,000 WARS TCG Booster Draft Tournament that's going to take place in Las Vegas. Now, we have more details on that coming up in the next couple of weeks, folks, but get ready. It's going to be Booster Draft, so you want to start practicing how to do that right now. And if you go back to the last WARS Radio that we posted, our interview with Mike Gerard talks all about Booster Drafts, so get yourself caught up on how that works. Now, news of the week for this week, in case you missed it, the Decipher WARS tour schedules are up, and we're getting ready to go. The tours start next week. We're making preparations to visit a lot of cities worldwide. Now, we wish we could visit everybody everywhere. We really do. But we've only got about 11 guys covering the U.S., Southern Canada, and Europe in a 3-week period. And we're also splitting the stops up with our new release for the Lord of the Rings TCG, the Shadows expansion. So we're doing the absolute best we can. We encourage you to do a little road trip if necessary. Come out and meet the Decipherian closest to you. Play him for some bounty, pick up some cool stuff, and just join a lot of us having fun on the Decipher Wars Tour. Again, that starts next week. You can check Decipher.com. The site highlight box right in the middle of the page gives you the full schedule for the Wars Tour and where the nearest stop is going to be to you. Also, for you budding story writers out there, in case you missed this, be sure and check out Chuck Kallenbach's Wars TCG, An Introduction to the Story document that was posted this week at warstcg.fanhq.com. Great reading, and it's going to supply a lot of the background storyline that you guys have been asking us here at WARS Radio all about. So check that out, folks. Our interview of the week, you guys wanted to know more about the art process, so we've opened our doors again and let the folks from the art department out. Once again, Ed Gartin joins us here on Decipher WARS Radio. Ed, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Mark. I'm excited to be here.
You are back by popular demand, too.
Yeah, apparently, 2, 3 people, maybe?
Something like that, sure. Well, for us, that's enough. We took a bit of a survey on the message boards a couple of weeks back and said, look, we need ideas. What do you guys want to hear about? What do you want us to come on and talk about and tell you about WARS TCG? And overwhelmingly, they want to know about the art process. They want to know how we tell our artists what to draw. They want to know, how much of a hand we have in that, how it ties into the story. So we thought we would have Ed back in here and talk about that whole process from story concepting to finished piece of art to finished card.
I think that you'll find that once I start describing the process, maybe it won't be as exciting. So maybe we should just not tell them.
No.
We should keep it all a secret.
No.
It's like the magic behind Disney. It's just that thing that happens underground when nobody ever sees it, and then suddenly there's like Mickey Mouse.
Is that how it works?
That's how it works.
Okay. Let's start off with the story, obviously, because the cards do tell a bit of a story, both through the art and through the game text. So when you approach Nowhere to Hide, all right, we now have the background of everything in Incursion, so we have a good idea of what the various factions look like. Now with Nowhere to Hide, we're telling more chunks of the story. Where does art come in?
Actually, at the beginning. Before we really do the story, for the whole year we define what the sets are going to be, set sizes and stuff like that. And then we have this overall story that sort of defines where the action's going to take place. Currently, we're all fighting around Ganymede and stuff like that. And then from that, we have the smaller storyline bits that we're going to really illustrate in this expansion. And there's a meeting with a bunch of people throughout the building that from various different departments, and we start talking about story. And there's actually Tom Lischke led up the last storyline development, and I mean there was a lot of people that were involved, and I sort of sit in and I say things like, wow, that seems cool, and wow, that doesn't seem as cool, and wow, I don't know where that comes from. But I mean it's not really any good input; it's just input. And we come up with the story, and we figure out what we want to illustrate. And then based on what story we come up with, I can determine which artist to go with. Certain artists have better skills in one area, and certain artists have better skills in another area. Somebody might be really good at vessels and vehicles, and somebody might be really good at creatures or characters.
So are the artists necessarily divided by faction, or are they divided up and assign things based on what they're good at?
They're not divided up by faction, and in fact, I try and push them a little bit and give them things that they might be uncomfortable with. But usually if somebody's really good at characters, I try and stick them in a character environment. For us, that could be a noun card, like a character card, or it could be a verb card, like an action card. And but generally, if they're really good at characters, I don't make them do, spaceships, vehicles, vessels, anything like that. Just stick with what they're good with. But every now and again, I push somebody over the edge, and they'll send me an email that says, wow, I don't know if I can do this. And I'll say, well, give it your best shot. And if it's horrible, I won't pay you. No, I'm just kidding. If it's horrible, we'll have somebody redo it. But, give it a try. All
right, so when you send out the call for work from the artist, what do you give them? How much do you tell them about the scene that you're asking them to illustrate?
We tell them a little bit about the scene we want to illustrate and a little bit about the image that we want to illustrate. I've got a whole sort of infrastructure built for the artists where there's reference images and there's style guides and stuff like that. And I sort of direct it from a larger perspective. I don't tell them exactly like stab this guy or shoot this guy or point gun left at character on far ground. Just none of the exact details. I give them sort of this loose definition of what I want. The characters I want in there, I don't say whether they're male or female unless it's, totally necessary, because some artists really like to illustrate females and some artists really like to illustrate males. And so I sort of leave that up unless, it's already a defined character or it's a defined role. If the character requires a specific gender, then we do specify that. And we sort of give them a lot more leeway than maybe other game companies do, because I want to make sure that this is fun for them. And, it's a job. Everybody knows it, but it should be a fun job, and they should want to come back every time. And so we give them, an outline of what they're going to draw, and we tell them interior, exterior. We tell them space shot, location shot. We tell them how many characters are in the scene, but we don't say this character is holding a glass up to his mouth. It's not the minuscule details. It's the overall details. It's the mood. It's the setting.
All right, so you send that out to an artist. How long is it before you get something back, and what do you get back?
After I send out what I call the art notes, 8 days later is when their preliminary sketches are due. And I usually get back a rough sketch of what they're going to, of their concept of, from my description, they develop their own concept for what the image is going to look like, and I get that back. It might be black and white, it might be color, but it's usually a rough outline. It's not a finished piece. Things are just blocked in. So you can look at it and you can say, oh, he's got 3 characters. Here's the action. Yeah, that's in line with what I was talking about. And then we give feedback and we say, wow, that either is just right in line with what we want, or it might be a little bit off, or hey, let's add this or subtract that. And from that preliminary sketch, we have a dialogue and we talk about where we want to go with the final.
All right, so there's a lot of work that goes into these that people probably don't realize. It's not just you tell a guy you want somebody holding a gun and they send you a picture. We're like, yeah, great, slap that on a card.
No, the process is... the quickest the process takes place is 30 days. From me communicating with the artist that says, here's your assignment, to them turning in their final is about 30 days. Before that is the initial discussions on, let's get together, let's work on this set. How many do you think you can accomplish in this time period? And then, there's a little discussion before that. But 8 days to preliminary sketch and 30 days to final sketch.
Now, one thing that we've discovered, too, is we have a mailing list set up for the artists where they can share their works and discuss, and the artists are actually having an effect on each other. Every time somebody posts a great piece, everybody else is like, oh, wow, that was amazing, and it pushes them to do better on there. So it's the direction's not even really just coming from you.
No, absolutely not. I mean, a lot of times artists that are freelance illustrators, they work in their studio by themselves, and it's kind of a lonely little world. And so I've set up basically communication within the artist, because outside of Decipher, there's message boards where artists communicate, on an ongoing basis, and they show their work, whether it's personal work or work that they're doing for companies, and they critique each other, and it's a familiar environment for them. They're used to talking about what they're working on with their peers on the internet. And so I've set up a similar structure so that they can communicate, and they can say, hey, here's what I'm doing, and somebody else can say, wow, that's much better than what I'm doing. I got to go back and redo mine. And there's a little competition that goes on there, but I think it's healthy, and I think it's constructive criticism that goes on.
Now, Nowhere to Hide comes out on January 7th. It is half the size of Incursion, so we're going to have half as many pieces of art. I know that you brought artists into the process. Are there artists that appeared in Incursion that are not going to be in Nowhere to Hide, or did everybody just get a smaller workload? What are we going to see?
We're going to see quite a few new faces out there, new names, I guess, to you guys. And I have dropped some people that were on the first set, and I'm trying to do an artist rotation. So what I'm trying to do is, rather than have the same guys work on every set, I'm going to rotate people in and out. And I've told all the artists this. I've said, hey, look, it's not that you're bad at what you do. It's just I want to keep getting, some fresh people in there and keep rotating old people in and, new people in. So there's a rotation that goes on. So some of the people that you saw in the first set, you'll see in the third set. And some of the people you see in the second set, you'll see in the fourth set. And there's always a couple artists that, it just doesn't work out for them. They don't quite get a handle on it, and we might, just not use them again for this property, but we might use them for another property. It's not that they're bad illustrators at all. It just maybe their style didn't fit in.
Do you ever see us getting to a point where these artists get to know the characters, they get to know the factions, that they can just, maybe they're sitting there in their spare time and they just, sketch out a quay or sketch out a she ship or something like that and send it in and said, hey, I got this, what do you think? Taking something like that and using it without all the note direction we talked about?
I'd like to think that that's something that's possible, but we really do follow, when we develop that storyline back there, we really do follow the action that's going on there. And we try and tell that story within the game. So without the storyline that we've developed earlier, it would be hard. I could get an image in and they could say, hey, here's a great, and it could be a beautiful Quay image. Very striking, a lot of drama. But if it doesn't fit in with the storyline, well, then I got to keep track of that image till suddenly, it fits in. So maybe that could happen, but it might be a while before that sort of thing happens. Because if you're illustrating stuff now, you're working on Ganymede. If you were illustrating stuff in the future, you might be working on Saturn, years from now. Mm-hmm. And location makes a difference. So, different environments affect the characters differently, and so it's going to be hard to actually use images like that.
Anything cool in Nowhere to Hide you can tell us about?
Cool. Well, there's a really cool new Nobot. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I think that Wars Radio has seen the packaging.
Yeah, we spoiled the flow pack, so you've seen parts of that Nobot.
Right, he's
perhaps.
Very cool. And, of course, there's going to be some really good images. In fact, I think this set looks better than the last set, so everything is pretty cool right now. All
right, we're out of the major convention season right now, so we probably don't have as much ability to get out and see artists and their stuff. Do you have any advice for somebody who's picked up Wars and maybe they're an artist themselves and they'd like to be involved?
They can always send me an email. I think my email address is wars.art@decipher.com. You can find that on the website. I've got a couple people actually that just sent me an email recently where they've illustrated Quay to show me that they can do it. They're not even working for us yet, and they're like, here, I can do it. Put me on the job. So, show us stuff that is, similar to what we're doing, and you might be illustrating in the next set.
Awesome. Sounds good. How's the workload down at Art right now?
It's a little heavy, but that's all right. Keeps us moving.
All right. Well, we're approaching deadlines for Nowhere to Hide. January 7th is approaching quicker than we'd like to imagine, and keep in mind, with the holidays coming up, we lose a couple of weeks there, too, so you guys have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, and set illustration is actually due next week.
All right. Ed, thanks for joining us once again on Decipher Wars Radio.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, moving along. Let's check some email.
Email. We get email.
All right.
We get your email every day. Here's your mail today.
Email for today. This comes from Anthony Smith. He says, hi, Mark. Just wanted to drop a line, let you know how much I love Wars TCG. I used to play SWCCG, but in my area it was difficult to find people to play with. I played a couple of games in between then and now and haven't found anything I loved as much as the original SWCCG. Definitely not the new Star Wars game that's out. I'm trying to get a play group going where I live. I've gotten a few people to start playing, but not enough for tournaments yet. The closest first tournament weekend was over 2 hours away, and sadly I couldn't make it. I'm really excited about getting to play Wars TCG with friends and hopefully hit some tournaments. Wars Radio is great. Thank you so much for doing it each week. Take care, Anthony. And again from Anthony Smith. Anthony, I feel for you, so we're going to make you email of the week, and I'm going to send you some stuff to do some demos for your friends, maybe get some folks down where you are, which he doesn't really state where he's at. But we'll see what we can do to help get some Wars TCG players going in your area. So, Anthony, you are email of the week. We'll get some prizes out to you here real soon. Some good stuff, too. All right. Big reveal for this week. Here's a sneak peek from Nowhere to Hide. Here's some nice Quay on She action. Go to warstcg.fanhq.com/articles/article.aspx !ID equals 523. Promo for next week. Well, there won't be a Wars Radio next week, or for the next 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, because I'll be out on the Decipher Wars tour playing Wars with you guys. In the upcoming weeks, we'll have Chuck Kallenbach in here, who I've mentioned twice now in the same broadcast. Very strange. He'll be here to talk about concepting for a trading card game, and Trevor McGregor will stop by to talk about tournaments for Wars TCG, so we'll have some great stuff on that. If you are in the, if you're in the Connecticut area, if you're in the upstate New York area, if you're in the Pittsburgh area or the Columbus, Ohio area, I will see you over the next couple of weeks on the Wars tour. By all means, stop by and say hi, folks. If you'd just like to shoot me an email, send your comments, suggestions, feedback, anything you want to send to wars.radio@decipher.com. That's it for Wars Radio, folks. Have a great couple of weeks.
Signal verification is complete.